Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers postgame reaction show. Just got back from Ball Arena, where the Lakers won for the first time since April 10th, 2022. The final game of the Frank Vogel era. The final basket of that game was that insane Mac McClung dunk. Austin Reeves had a 30-point triple-double, joining Jerry West and Blake Griffin as the oldie rookies to do that. So a lot of time has passed. It's been almost 3 years since the Lakers had won in Denver. It had been 8 straight losses in Denver. So LA wins a very important game. They improved to now 1-1 this season against Denver, just 2-13 over the past 15 games. However, everything is different now that Luka Doncic is a Laker. This is a completely different matchup, and we saw it tonight. I will be touching on all that. But before we get into tonight's show, you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. So the Lakers win in Denver 123-100 to improve to 34-21 on the season. Again, as I mentioned, 1-1 against Denver this season and 1-0 against Denver in the Luka Doncic era. And overarching takeaway number one for me is this is a top 3 win of the season for the Lakers. And considering the context of everything, of the history with Denver, having lost 13 of 14 entering this game, having lost 8 straight in Denver, and Luka not yet feel like looking like himself and still acclimating to this situation, I think it's arguably the best win of the season. I think the top 3 in some order are this win in Denver, the home win against the Celtics, and the road win in New York without AD. I think you could order those 3 in any way that you want, but I think this one is arguably as impressive, if not more impressive, than those other 2. So for me, I'd probably put this one number 1, just with how convincingly the Lakers won this game. And the final score, I don't think, is indicative of how dominant the Lakers were on both sides of the ball. Denver barely gets to 100 points. They barely crack triple digits. They get a 3-pointer late in garbage time just to get to a measly 100 points. And remember, this is an offense that has been a buzzsaw, specifically against the Lakers. And tonight, the tables turned. Things were flipped with Luka as a Laker, and it was the Lakers who were the buzzsaw. It was the Lakers who were constantly one pass ahead of the Nuggets and generated some incredible shots. And really, especially in that first half, LA, I believe, had a 9-point halftime lead, and they missed a good 4, 5, 6 wide open threes. And even if they make half of those, which is obviously a high percentage shot, you're talking about potentially an 18-point lead at halftime in a totally different tenor to the game. Then Denver comes out and goes on one of their Denver runs. Like, how many times have we seen the Lakers have a good first half against Denver, have a good even first 3 quarters against Denver, and then Denver goes on one of their inevitable runs? And so LA's up by 9. Denver goes on an 8-0 run to cut it to 1. And that's where, like, it's deja vu all over again. We've seen the same movie, and the Lakers respond with their own 7-0 run to stretch the lead back up to 8. And then they just keep going. And it feels like tonight, I'm going to touch on Luka, and I'm going to touch on the defense against Jokic. And so I'm going to save those for those specific takeaways. But I just think adding Luka into this matchup changes the complexion of the LA-Denver dynamic. And I think there was a lot of focus, myself included, on how they were going to defend Jokic, the hole at the center position, and this being a bad matchup for the Lakers. But not enough was said about how much Luka has dominated and destroyed and eviscerated Denver in recent years and recent matchups, and really them just not being able to defend Luka, LeBron, and Austin, and that three-headed monster just providing so much playmaking and shot creation for the Lakers offense. And then we saw a dialed in defensive game plan and defensive execution from this group. I think arguably their best defensive performance of the season, given the context of everything, not having AD, not having Max anymore, still figuring out this new defensive identity. They didn't miss a beat tonight. They didn't play a backup center. They went with Vando. They went small. And it matter. And there's questions about, like, is it going to be Jemison? Is it going to be Koloko? Are they going to dust off Len? Maybe give him one more shot? And it was like, no, they're going to play Jackson Hayes. They're going to play Jarred Vanderbilt. They're going to play Rui Hachimura. They're going to play LeBron, and they're just going to go small and not even guard Jokic with a true center. Like Jackson Hayes, I think got like 2 or 3 total possessions on Jokic, and a couple of those were like cross matches in transition. And he did have a nice strip on Jokic, but just the game plan was clearly, Rui, Vando, and then LeBron. And obviously there was some cross matching, and then LA was swarming him and doubling. And again, I'll touch on that in a second, but I just thought, all things considered, all the context of everything, Luka breaking out in the way that he did, he's officially arrived, the defensive game plan. And I think this is the worst game Jokic has played against the Lakers, maybe going back to like the 2020 Western Conference Finals. Like, I mean, certainly within the stretch of Denver dominating LA, this was Jokic's worst performance and the most that they bothered him. So I just think there's 2 more matchups with LA, Denver, and Denver will come with their own adjustments. And I think there's a lot that they could do better and a lot of things that they need to tinker with. But when it comes down to it, I just think that they have a Luka problem. They have a LeBron problem. They can't guard both those guys. And I think the Lakers offense basically got whatever it wanted against Denver. And I'm not quite sure Denver has the defensive personnel to shut off the Lakers' water in the way that they really need to. And again, this is where I think we saw the difference in having Luka in this matchup versus the difference in having AD. And it's no shade at AD, but Luka's just at a different level and has a different level of control over the offense and just in this matchup. So that was to me the overarching takeaway of the game. Like, I think arguably best wins for the Lakers, and if not the best, if you want to say Boston, because Boston is the defending champs and the Lakers Celtics always means more and whatever, I would say the most important win of the season up to this point, in my opinion. Stat of the night, I have 2, but one I'm going to lean into a little bit more. Nikola Jokic having 6 turnovers to me was I haven't been able to go back and look through all the previous box scores over this past stretch of a couple seasons, but that felt like it's got to be a high or close to his turnover high against the Lakers. And they really were bothering him and swarming him and getting deflections and really just like he was flustered at times in a way that he just hasn't been in previous matchups. And then along those same lines, 24 stocks for the Lakers, 15 steals and 9 blocks. And I was asked a question on, I did a Q&A yesterday in the afternoon, and someone asked me, like, what do you think's the Lakers defensive of ceiling? And I said, probably like the 7th best defense. And just because look, they've been the best for the past, at that point, 17 games. But I think once Luka starts to play a little bit more, and like they have lost some good defenders, great defenders, even with AD, and then a really good one in Max. Like, I think this team is going to dip a little bit defensively. But tonight's performance, like, I don't think you could count on the Lakers being that locked in on a nightly basis. Like JJ talked about, not sleeping since the Portland game Thursday night and really just bunkering down, watching film, going over the game plan with the coaching staff. And multiple players spoke to getting up for this game. Like, this game meant something more to the Lakers, as it should have, given the way the previous matchups have gone. And so I don't think this type of defensive performance it's hard for a team to play that hard and execute that well on a nightly basis. Like, even the greatest teams of all time have lulls and have the nights that they don't quite have it. But the Lakers showed something in a big matchup, and they've been showing that in big matchups recently. Again, like the Boston game was late January. The New York game was also February 1st, and the Golden State couple wins. Like they've been showing up for these big games recently, and it feels like they are out coaching and out maneuvering and just looking like the better team against a lot of the top teams in the league right now. And look, they got a brutal stretch coming up. I mean, LeBron posted about it today on his Instagram story. Rui talked about it after the game and said that like we really got to lock in for March, and their March is going to be tough if that 6-game day stretch, including a couple of back-to-backs against Denver and Milwaukee, it's going to get a lot tougher, and it's going to be difficult to sustain this performance on a nightly basis. But we saw the Lakers ceiling tonight, and even then, I think they could have shot much better with how many open looks they generated, and we could have seen them drop like 140 and really blow this thing open. And we're talking about like a just thrashing, like super embarrassing loss for the Nuggets. So I think the defensive potential is high, and the way that they played tonight is like league best type defense. And again, I don't know how often they can replicate this specific type of execution, but like, I mean, that top 7, maybe it's top 5, I think they're going to be a top 5 offense. So if you're top 5 on both sides of the ball, like that is true contender, like elite status. And then takeaway number 1 for me is Luka arrives. So pregame, we're talking to JJ about Luka, and he says that he wants Luka. He told him this morning before the game that he wants Luka to have at least one blackout episode where he just starts yelling at no one in particular, just yelling to himself, yelling at the crowd, whatever, and just that one of those Luka moments. And there were multiple tonight. Luka was sneering and snarling and trash talking. There was a couple times, like one time, Jamal Murray switched onto him. He took him off the dribble in for like a floater, and he just looked at the Nuggets bench and was shaking his head. He had a 1 3-pointer in the first half, late in the first, and he's just yelling to himself and celebrating. It was an emotive celebration. He picks up a technical foul going into halftime because he drives, he gets hit in the head. They don't call it. And he gets his first technical as a Laker, which I thought was like a good, like that was one of the times where it's like, go get the technical. If that's going to fire you up, like go do that. So Luka had multiple of those moments. He also was trash talking some fans, hit a step back 3 on the left side in the second half, turned to a couple of courtside fans, started trash talking them. So Luka was in his element. He was in his zone. He looked like Luka Doncic. He completely dominated this game. And again, I've said it now a couple times, but like, I think he drastically changes this matchup because they didn't have an answer for him. They really wanted to keep Aaron Gordon on LeBron James. And they even eventually at one point switched Aaron Gordon onto Luka Doncic, and it didn't matter. He was just running high pick and roll, double drags, and targeting Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. And that's something that I talked about yesterday on my Lakers Nuggets preview, that if I'm the Lakers, I need to target those 2 guys relentlessly. And it was, where's Jokic? Bring him up. Murray, bring him up. And with Jokic, then they would try to double or blitz Luka. And that's when it depending on who the roll man is or someone relocating toward the ball, now all of a sudden you got that 4-on-3, and the Lakers were generating a bunch of good looks, had a bunch of cuts for dunks and fouls, but also were generating corner and wing 3-pointers out of those types of actions whenever they doubled Luka. And he also can make some incredible passes out of those. So it's not just him hitting the roller or him hitting the safety valve there. It's also Luka just jumping and finding guys and stuff. So he had total command of the Lakers offense. He looked like himself. He was hitting the step back. It didn't matter. Like I thought Christian, like Brown, all things considered, was in his face with a lot of those jumpers, and didn't matter. But when you got a guy that's 6'8", 6'9", with that frame and that ability to step back and create separation, that's like basically an unstoppable shot. And so he looked like himself. He was dominating the offense. Overall stat line was 32 points on 10 of 22 shooting, 4 of 9 on threes, 8 for 8 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals. Luka was awesome playing the passing lane tonight. And he's been averaging a career high on the season in terms of steals. A block, only 1 turnover, and was Lakers were plus 20 in his 31 minutes. 31 minutes was a season high as a Laker. 32 points, obviously, clears his previous season high as a Laker of 17. So this was by far and away the best performance from Luka as a Laker. I think he's back. I think he's arrived. And we've talked about, like, what are we going to see this type of performance from him? And we saw it tonight. And again, just the way that he commanded the floor, the way that he commanded the offense, and just the ability to generate a good look on, like, almost every possession. Like, it was remarkable to see. And one thing that JJ clarified post game that I think is going to be interesting moving forward is he said, when Luka's on the floor, the ball needs to go through him, not LeBron, not Austin. The ball needs to be in Luka's hands, and him mismatch hunting, and him running pick and rolls, running double drags, even running some horns and three-man actions with Austin and LeBron. But he needs to be the point guard. He needs to be the primary ball handler, and LeBron and Austin need to be more secondary ball handlers when Luka is on the floor. But he said, with the way that they're going to be staggering those three, there are going to be times where LeBron is the primary guy on the floor. There's going to be times when Austin's the primary guy on the floor. There's going to be times when both of those guys are together and they're sharing those duties. But JJ, there did some, I think we knew that this is the way it was headed, but it had not been said as concretely as JJ said it tonight, of, like, the ball is going to go through Luka. And it makes sense. Luka, as I've said, as many consider him like a top 3 guy. And I think LeBron has been playing arguably at a top 5 level for, like, quite some time now. But Luka is the best player on the team. This is his team now and moving forward. And JJ is making it clear that, like, we're going to be at our best with Luka running the show. So tonight was the first step in that direction. There are more steps to go. I don't expect him to play necessarily at this level every night. I think he's acclimating and adjusting, but Luka broke out. Luka exploded. Luka arrived. And I think we're going to see more performances like this moving forward, and not the previous first 3 games as a Laker. Takeaway number 2 is LA stifles Jokic. And again, as I mentioned, I think this is arguably the best defensive game plan I've seen from the Lakers, at least since I've been covering Lakers Nuggets, which started in the season after the bubble year, the championship season, but especially over the last 3 years, as Denver has become the team that they are, and they got healthy, and Jamal Murray took a leap, and MPJ and Aaron Gordon, and like that core 4 guys over the past 3 years. I think this was the best the Lakers that defended Jokic. So it started with being physical, and you saw Rui Hachimura and Jarred Vanderbilt, who picked up. Vando had 5 fouls in 6 minutes, 8 minutes, I believe. It's not showing up here, but 6 minutes. So Vando had, like, the most impactful 6 minutes you will ever see in a basketball game. But both those guys bumping Jokic, being physical with him, not letting him get to his spots, and really wrestling and battling and jockeying for position with him. Then there was a lot of fronting from the Lakers, as they call it, whiting. So there's different terminology based on different colors. Like redding is when you switch everything, or you might say like 1 through 4 red, which is just switched 1 through 4. Whiting is when you front the post and front a certain player. So there's a lot of fronting, and then they're also zoning up the backside with a second guy always nearby in case they tried to hit Jokic with the over-the-top lob pass. That there was always a second defender there, and the Lakers. The Lakers kind of flipped this in terms of the Nuggets have often been the one packing the paint against them and daring them to shoot and daring them to try to beat them with threes and with jumpers. And the Lakers kind of did the inverse tonight, where they were packing the paint against Denver. And it was basically like, if it's not Murray and it's not MPJ, we're not afraid of you. Like Aaron Gordon, he ends up hitting 4 of 7 threes, but they were living with that. Russ ends up hitting 3 of 7 threes. They were living with that. Christian Brown gets 1 for 3 on threes. They were living with that. So it was like anyone that's not Murray or MPJ, we're going to sag off you. We're going to load up the paint. We're going to zone up against Jokic, and we're going to bother him. Then when he did get the ball, Lakers of doubling him and doubling him aggressively, they switched it up a bit, where in the previous matchup, completely different strategy, I will say. I will give JJ a lot of props for the game plan tonight, because as for those who saw my stream yesterday, I went back and rewatched the Lakers Nuggets game, and the Lakers were primarily guarding him with AD, and there's a little bit of Christian Coloco in there. No Rui, no LeBron. They were going center only, and then they were doubling from the top side, from the perimeter. The closest perimeter player was coming down to double, and then they were sending the next closest perimeter player to shift over to whoever was one pass away, making that entry pass. It was often Michael Porter Jr., sometimes Jamal Murray. So that was the Lakers' strategy then, and they actually bothered him for the first quarter and a half, and then he started to get going later in the second quarter, and then they had the huge third quarter. They blow the Lakers out. Tonight, the Lakers did a good job fronting him, being physical, getting under his skin, especially Vando. I picked up an offensive foul on Jokic, but then it was doubling a lot from the baseline and taking away some of those baseline cuts and baseline swing passes to the corner, and then it was in tandem a lot. Sometimes it was even a triple team. There was a couple of possessions where I rewatched, and it was like they're actually basically triple teaming Jokic and daring him to find the open guy. And look, especially early, he found some cutters and he found some shooters, and it was a little shaky early in terms of he wasn't getting his, he was creating for other people, but they stuck with it. They fine-tuned it a bit. I thought the third guy, because it would be like a second guy doubling, third guy then was supposed to be in between a couple guys, and that player was often Luka, and he did a really good job there. So I just think from an execution standpoint, we saw LA do a similar thing to Karl Anthony Towns with their ability to go small and double and be physical. But Kat and Jokic are two different animals. Jokic is best player in the league. He has destroyed the Lakers over this 3-year stretch, and tonight they shut him down. I mean, he finishes 12. I mean, he still gets the triple-double because he's a walking triple-double, but 12 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists, but does so on 2 of 7 shooting, 8 for 10 at the free throw line, and as I mentioned before, 6 turnovers. So LA attacked him defensively. I think they tired him out a bit in how much he had to come up and double or play up to touch. And then they also tired him out on the other end, where they're just being they were fouling him on basically every possession, and they were kind of doing what Portland did to them the other night of call it. And the refs, they called some of them, but they didn't call all of them, and that's how you got to guard him. And on the other end, Denver was hacking them, and LA, I think had a nice advantage there. And then takeaway number 3 before we get into the Q&A. I wanted to shout out specifically Rui and Vando as the unsung heroes of tonight's game. So Rui gets the primary Jokic assignment, and going back to 2023, remember, the Lakers switch Rui onto Jokic. He defends him reasonably well, and that's the talking point coming out of game 1 is Lakers lose, but Rui kind of slowed down Jokic, and this is the big assignment. This is the big adjustment that is going to propel the Lakers to win the series. LA ends up getting swept, and that was a huge, especially for Michael Malone. It was a big talking point of the Rui on Jokic, and the Lakers made the adjustment, and we won game 1, and everyone's talking about the Lakers, and that was kind of a moment that added some fuel to this fire of the Lakers Nuggets beef over the last few years. But tonight, Rui played as physical as I can remember him playing. He was just nonstop jockeying with Jokic, in his back with forearm bar, elbows, and Rui was a man on a mission. And I think this was maybe his best defensive performance that I've seen as a Laker. I don't think that's I think he's had some good performances against Karl Anthony Towns, against Julius Randle, even against Kevin Durant. I think there was one time, but considering the opponent and the context of everything, I think this was Rui's best defensive performance. I think he did exactly what the Lakers needed him to do. He didn't even have a rebound, and there's really not much to pick. He was just focused on Jokic defensively, and again, just being a pest and bothering him, and he did that. And then offensively, he was awesome. And he finished with 21 points, 7 of 12 shooting, 4 for 9 threes, at 12 points in the third quarter, hit a 3 during that. Remember, LA responded with a 7-0 run to Denver going on an 8-0 run. And Rui hit a 3 during that stretch. And I think Rui just made some huge shots. He played with a level of fire and emotion that you like to see from Rui. And I think nights like tonight are I would like to see this more from Rui, and that's not a criticism or a nitpick, but he will show these flashes of when he wants to, he can be a really good defender, and he can show up in big games. Because remember, going back to the Denver series last year, he averaged 7 points a game, and he was not very good. He was missing layups, he was missing open threes, and he was really ineffective in that game. And tonight, this was one of his best performances, if not his best, against Denver, in my opinion. And he was great, and he was great on both sides of the ball. He even ends up going back to the locker room with some type of we didn't get clarity on what it was, but some type of abdomen or rib injury, and then he comes back and plays again at the fourth. He could have called it a night with the way the game was going, but he wanted to be out there, and you just saw competitive fire from him that you don't always see. But he was awesome on both sides of the ball. And then Vando coming in and just causing chaos with, again, he and Julian Strother were having a foul off of who could foul more in limited minutes. But Vando comes in. It was only the Lakers were only +1 into 6 minutes, but he came in immediately, is picking up Jokic at half court and getting in his way, just being a pest and bothering him and being physical. Jokic gets an offensive foul on him. Vando picks up a couple fouls against him, but then he draws 3 fouls against the Nuggets in his first 84 seconds on the floor. He also picks up a couple of his own, but he also gets a couple steals, and basically also gets that flagrant foul on Julian Strother. So I thought Vando, for a guy who only played 6 minutes, had as impactful of 6 minutes as you could have. And I think he and Rui tonight, Rui played 36 minutes, Vando played 6, so that's 42. Jokic played 35, so Vando was primarily on the floor, but when Jokic was out there, and then Rui was obviously taking the primary assignment. So between those two, they essentially gave the Lakers 35 minutes. I also thought LeBron deserves credit for, LeBron had a LeBron game. He's been playing, there was that first series, I don't think he was quite himself, and he was also dealing with the foot stuff. But since then, he's dominated the Nuggets, and he's looked great against them. 25, 9, and 5. But he had 3 blocks tonight, and I thought he switched on to Jokic. And I talked about it yesterday, that I feel like when LeBron is on Jokic, I feel like he actually defends him the best. He's super aggressive. I think he is one of the few guys that can match Jokic's basketball IQ. So he kind of knows the passes he's trying to make, the angles he's trying to take. So I thought LeBron, for a few possessions there, switched on to him, did a great job. But as a weak side guy, as a helper, he had the huge block on. So LeBron's defense was really good tonight. And Austin, 23 points, 7 assists. He always shows up against Denver. So this was just a team win. LA had 4 guys drop 20 or more. Jackson did his job as a helper, only 4 points and 4 rebounds, but also had a steal and a block. I think was doing a good job trying to Aaron Gordon had 0 offensive rebounds, and Jackson was the primary guy trying to keep Aaron Gordon off the glass. So just awesome stuff on both sides of the ball from the Lakers. The more I think about it, the more I talk about it, I think this is the best win of the season, even better than the Boston one. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A. I see we already got some super chats in here. First one from Delo's Strongest Soldier. Thank you for the super chat. Am I insane for saying the Lakers defense is better post AD than with him? I don't think you're insane. I think it's held up, right? I do think looking at, if we want to pull up the Lakers schedule, since AD, so AD goes out the Philly game, then I think in general, the competition's been a little bit easier. Like you have Washington, Utah twice, Charlotte, Portland. Like Portland had been playing well, but on the whole, I wouldn't put them in like the upper echelon. But you also have wins against the Knicks, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Pacers, Denver. I don't think. I think like if you want to say like how it's performed, I think you can make the case it's maintained and performed at a similar level. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me in terms of defensive rating and rank and stuff. I know they've largely, I said entering tonight, they were the best defense in the league over the previous 17 games. Assume tonight did not drop them, or if it dropped them, they're at worst second best defense. So this has been a sustained stretch of the Lakers being a dominant defense. That's where again I'm maybe changing my priors on like what their defensive ceiling is. I said number 7, maybe it is number 5, number 3, whatever. I think longer term, there will be teams that test them I want to see them against OKC. I want to see them against Boston again. I want to see them against the Knicks again. They play Memphis and Houston and Milwaukee. Like I think those other teams present different problems and not that the Lakers can't solve those problems, but I would like to see a larger sample size, especially with Luka, because part of that stretch, like the Clippers win, the Knicks win, Luka wasn't a part of. This was like their first dominant win against a good team with Luka. Obviously, it's been a small sample size. It's the first good team they played with Luka. So you can't beat good teams if you're not playing them, but point is, like, I want to see a larger sample size, but you might be onto something here. Like, I think there's something to them playing small and the doubling and rotating and scrambling. And again, we saw it against the Knicks, we saw it against the Clippers, we saw it against the Warriors, we saw it tonight. So I think that style has worked really well with the personnel. I think a big part of this too has been getting Vando back. I think Vando has been a game changer, and he has made up for some of the AD loss. Obviously, he's not playing anywhere close to the amount of minutes that he's playing, but I would like to see a larger sample size. I'm still going to say, in my opinion, the Lakers are worse defensively, because I think Max was a big piece defensively as well. But can they maintain a similar level or like just a notch below? I think the answer is yes. So I don't think you're insane. Jackson, thank you for the super chat. Jovan, what is going on with Cody Zeller? Inside info. I don't know what's going on with Cody Zeller. Is there something going on with Cody Zeller I'm supposed to know? Is that something with him in the Lakers? I don't know what you're talking about. So I've not heard anything with Cody Zeller. Eric Belton, thank you for the super chat. Luka/Braun going to be hell to play against in the playoffs. 100%. Most teams don't have a guy who could slow one of the two, let alone both. And you saw that tonight. Like Christian Braun is just too small to guard Luka, and even when they put Aaron Gordon on him, they were able to shake him with high pick and roll. So, yeah, good luck. Like really, the only thing that you could do, like we saw Charlotte target Luka, and I suspect there will be teams that try to target him more. Denver didn't really have, like, I guess Jamal Murray could try to do that, but Luka's he's a different type of guy than like a LaMelo. So I think there will be teams that probably can target Luka a bit, but yeah, I mean, good luck trying to stop both those guys. And that's why, like, I think if we are doing a draft of guys you want in a playoff series, like moving forward, I think Luka's clearly a top 5 guy. I mean, I put him arguably number 2, probably would put him number 2, but LeBron is top 7, maybe top 5. And I think 2 of those guys on the same team, just crazy. Braden, thank you for the super chat. JJ's coaching and game plan tonight was phenomenal. Luka has arrived. Agreed on both points. I think JJ deserved his flowers for, I think he outcoached Missoula, he outcoached Thibodeau, he outcoached Kerr, he outcoached Lou. He, outcoached Malone tonight. JJ's been having some phenomenal game plans. And again, he said he did not sleep for the past 48 hours, basically in preparation for this game. I'm sure he slept maybe like 4 hours or something, but we saw it tonight with how they played. And yeah, Luka's here. Jonathan Frazier, thank you for the super chat. How do you go about finding a flight and hotel for every road game? Do you pay for it out of your own pocket? So at The Athletic, we use Amex GBT, American Express GBT, which is a travel service. My two criteria for travel is hotels. I only stay in Marriott's, so I get the Marriott points, and flights. I almost exclusively fly Delta unless the price is unreasonable, or some cities, depending on where you're connecting or whatever, don't even have a Delta flight, or it's like you got to connect somewhere else, and then you got like a 2, 3, 4 hour layover, and then it turns like a 2-hour trip into like an 8-hour trip. So then I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna take the other airline. But yeah, so I booked it through them, so that covers flight and hotel, and then I pay for food out of pocket, and then I get a certain amount I'm able to spend on a daily basis. And I expense food, I expense Ubers and baggage. Like with Delta, I have status, so I don't have to do that. But if I fly a different airline, I usually have to check baggage and any types of any type of external fee I get to expense depending on what it is. But yeah, so I really, the only thing I pay for out of pocket is like food and Ubers, but otherwise they pay, and then I get reimbursed for that. So they pay. Really, like that's one of the like the Lakers get the fancy, they fly the Delta private plane, and they leave right after the game, and they have people moving their stuff, and like they don't have to worry about their luggage. They just have to worry about getting on the bus, getting to the plane, and flying to wherever they're flying. So that is its own thing. And they stay in 5-star hotels and whatnot. But we, like, our big perk is we get the flight miles, and we get the hotel points. And then every summer, since I've been a beat writer, I've been able to go on a nice vacation that I usually can get the flight for free, and then do the hotel for either for free or severely discounted with my points. So it is a lot of travel, a lot of miles, a lot of connecting in random places, but it's a privilege, and it's one of the more fun parts of the job. Britain, thank you for the super chat. Denver Nuggets, chicken nuggets, Golden Nugget Hotel, doesn't matter. Give me the Lake Show. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go into this game with an open mind as to, like, I think Luka replacing AD is going to change this matchup drastically in potentially a couple of ways. Like, I thought Lakers would be better offensively. I wondered about the defensive end, but yeah, if the Lakers can defend with that level of detail and focus and execution, and Luka's only going to get better offensively, and I think they could have shot the ball better than they did tonight. I think that this flips this matchup on its head. Like, I think entering this game, you could have made a case that the Nuggets were the worst matchup for LA based on the history, based on how things had looked up to this point. I'm not saying they're a good matchup necessarily. I think the next time they play, Denver will look better, but I do think I don't think they're the worst matchup anymore. Jazz_Sing, thank you for the super. Lakers look like a big three with depth. Yeah, and I'm glad you say big three, because I think Austin deserves his flowers. Austin has been awesome. He has been balling out for 2 months, and I know I always get the questions like, should Austin be benched? Should Austin, like, I just think it's like, don't overthink it. This dude, like, sure, can the Lakers get better defense out of Gabe Vincent or Dorian Finney-Smith or Jarred Vanderbilt? Yeah, those guys are better defenders than Austin Reeves, but he is at such a level offensively right now, and really going back, I think to a couple years ago, but just been progressing as an offensive player. His shot creation, his shot making, the playmaking. Austin has been great for basically 2 months, and he rarely has 2 bad games in a row. Like for the time he has a bad game, and then people come on here and say they want to bench him or reduce his minutes or this or that. The next game, he often comes out and has a real game. So I think that's another thing. Like he holds himself to a certain standard and really, I think does a good job of responding well to his own adversity when he doesn't play as well as he would like. And yeah, I mean, the Lakers are 8 deep. I think Dalton, I think at this point, it's like he's just not really played well for quite. He had been playing better, I guess, before the trade, but it had only been like a few games. It's been a sustained stretch of him not playing well and not making shots. So I think they go 8 deep, and as long as those 8 guys are healthy and available, I can compete with anybody. Stephanopoulos, thank you for the super chat. Lakers were in control, but Denver hit back per usual. Good to see this group hit back harder. Luka / LeBron are a unique duo and can be devastating. Yes, I touched on that Denver goes on the 8-0 run. LA responds with a 7-0 run, and they just stretch the lead out in the third quarter and then into the early fourth quarter. And Luka and LeBron, it's just like, it's crazy because they can hit each other with hit-ahead passes, and that was a big part of this. Was like they would get their stops, they would, cause whatever chaos, get a steal, get a defensive rebound. And one of Luka and LeBron is leaking out, and Luka obviously found him a couple times for he had the lob and hit ahead for a dunk, but LeBron also found Luka for like Luka kind of leaking out a bit toward like half court, and then give Luka a 3-on-1 or 3-on-2 advantage in transition, and he's going to make something great happen. So I think right now, like these two, they're 4 games in. This was their first game that they really had to get up for. Like they played Utah twice, Charlotte once. It's kind of human nature. You're not necessarily going to approach those. Like the first Utah game, obviously Luka's debut, they come out and they blow them out, and everything's great. Next couple games, it's the first game or the last game going into the All-Star break. Then it's the first game coming out of the All-Star break. And I think the team on some level was not happy about having their All-Star break cut short. That the Lakers and Hornets were the only 2 teams the night before. And then they're going to a road trip and a back-to-back. So they respond well in Portland. They respond even better tonight. And yeah, Luka and LeBron, it's just the level of basketball IQ and passing is, I think it's the best passing duo of all time. I don't even think you can make I don't know what combination of passers is close to this level. John Stockton didn't play with another John Stockton. Magic Johnson didn't play with another Magic Johnson. Jokic has not played with another Jokic. Harden has not played with another Harden. Like Luka and LeBron are the Spider-Man meme in terms of their passing and their playmaking and their court vision, basketball IQ. It's unprecedented. Christian, thank you for the super chat. We're going to get a lot more blackout episodes from Luka. This is what he's giving us with him still getting used to this new normal with the Lakers. Yeah, like I love that. That was fun. I get from an opposition perspective, like maybe that stuff can be annoying, but I like guys who play with passion. I thought him trash talking the Nuggets and the crowd, it takes stuff to the Lakers bench and just like hyping himself up. I thought that was awesome. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that with Luka moving forward. The notorious CRG. Why do you hate Alex Len so much? LOL, JK. I don't hate Alex Len. There's no one really I hate in the NBA. I try to call it like I see it, and I try to be fair, but I voiced my concerns with the Alex Len signing. I think they played out with his brief stint on the floor, but no, I do not hate Alex Len. Brian Rhymes, thank you for the super chat. LeBron's versatility is unmatched. Yeah, like I mentioned it, but like LeBron's defense tonight, to say nothing of his offensive performance, getting downhill, putting a lot of pressure on the Nuggets in transition, and just flying around defensively. I mean, that to me is not to reopen the GOAT debate, because I don't like touching on it, but I just don't think we've ever seen a player with the versatility of LeBron James in NBA history. Like, even I know Scottie Pippen is another guy that's in that conversation, not the GOAT conversation, but like most versatile player ever. But he was a good passer, and maybe you a great passer. I would say good, but if you want to argue great, sure. Not like LeBron. And I don't think we've seen a guy who could defend all 5 positions, play all 5 positions offensively, be a big, be a small, be a wing. He's turned himself into a far above average shooter. He's one of the best finishers of all time, if not the best finisher for his size of all time, and one of the best passers of all time. Statistically, the best scorer of all time, at least in terms of total points. In points per game, he's not far off the top of the charts. So LeBron is incredible, remarkable, amazing, all of the great adjectives. Shibugan, thank you for the super chat. Sounds like you were high on Rui's performance tonight. Would you say he played with force while living and loving in the paint? I was high on Rui's performance. And look, I still think longer term, I still have questions about, like, the one thing with Denver is their 2 best players are a big man and a point guard. And Michael Porter Jr., I think, came down, like, what did he finish with tonight? I don't remember off the top of my head. I just pulled up the box score from the first quarter. Got to update. Okay, Michael Porter Jr., 13 points, 5 of 14 shooting, 1 for 4 on threes. I thought the Lakers did a really good job of preventing Michael Porter Jr. threes tonight, but I also think, like, he came, like, I talked about this yesterday, like, Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray shoot far above their season averages against the Lakers. They always cook the Lakers. LeBron had the mind the game quote, remember, with JJ, where he said, like, this guy, like, doesn't miss against us. There's something about the purple and gold where MPJ just gets up for those matchups. Tonight, he was human. He missed. And so I think point is, like, I think Denver doesn't test you on the wing the way that some other teams will, like in OKC, like Boston, like the Clippers. So those matchups, I do think the wing defense of DFS Vando is a little bit more important than Rui's defensive capabilities or limitations on the perimeter. But for this matchup, and with the way that they used him against Jokic, he was obviously huge. And again, I think it was in the conversation for best Rui defensive performance I can remember. I know with Cat and Julius Randle in particular, he's had a lot of success against those 2 guys, but they're not Jokic. And I know he had, like, the stint in game 1, but in watching film on Denver ahead of last postseason, like in the regular season, Jokic was cooking Rui, and Rui, like, the Lakers tried it a couple of times, just to mix things up, and, like, he was backing him down, getting deep position, and scoring over him. So I think Rui deserves a lot of credit for playing some of the best defense I can recall him playing, period, but also specifically against Jokic. And he did play with force and living and loving in the paint. Not as much offensively, though. He did have some cuts. He had 4 of his 7 shots were threes, and then I think he had the one basket early in transition. Then he had a couple of cuts for like layups and dunks. So living and loving in the paint defensively. And obviously that's the Darvin callback. Andrew Escamilla, thank you for the super chat. How is Vando's foot? To my knowledge, it's fine. He was icing it post game, but I think that's, like, typical for him. He was kind of actually switching between ice buckets. I'm not sure what that was about, but to my knowledge, like, there was no update post game in terms of we spoke with him. He didn't say anything about his foot. Now, he wasn't asked about it, but he so I that might be something to monitor. I guess that could be because he did have the one play with Strother where he kind of took out his legs and then it looked like, but he played after that point a few more minutes while picking up some fouls. So I think he'll be okay. And I think, to my knowledge, Rui's going to be okay, but with Rui, I think it's at most a short-term thing, but not even necessarily missing time. I just think he's probably going to be a bit sore, but we'll see. Injury report won't be out until Monday. Lakers also practice Monday. To the we, thank you for super chat. DFS unsung hero, highest plus minus, and good defense all over. good. You know what? I'm glad you called out the because I was focusing more on like Jokic, but DFS, he guarded him, in cross matching a little bit. He was big on the doubling and the backside rotations, and he's always been plus minus monster for Lakers. To your point, Lakers were a team best plus 21 in his 27 minutes. Didn't shoot the ball well, and he was the guy who got plenty of open looks above the arc as like that safety valve catch and shoot guy, but a couple steals. And with, as I've said countless times with DFS, it's not really ever about the box score stats other than maybe his shooting. Like he just does all these little things that add up to winning. So yeah, like DFS and Vando have been the two biggest, and really more DFS if you just look at the lineup data. But like in terms of the Lakers' success with small lineups, it's been DFS and Vando have been the two guys who have really swung that. And like those two guys being in those front courts with LeBron and with Rui have really just taken the small ball to a different level. Marley, thank you for the super chat. JJ over exceeding the podcaster and rookie head coach expectations. Yeah, I mean, look, I took the L on the Jeremy Grant take the other day, talking about how I wanted the Lakers to previously trade for him. And I took the victory lap on Max and my optimism with Max. I will take a slight victory lap with JJ in that I was on board with the JJ signing from the beginning. When talking through the different candidates, I felt like JJ made the most sense, and that was ultimately how it played out in terms of them hiring him. Now, I think it was a bit up and down at first, right? And especially around that Miami game loss, there was, is this kind of the same thing that wasn't even JJ's fault necessarily, but the same thing as like Vogel and Ham, where the locker room starting to quit on him. But he has galvanized this group from that point specifically. And they've been humming at, like, they've been a top 5, if not top 3 team in the league from that point. And that's a huge testament to LeBron, AD, Luka, Austin, Rui, DFS, Gabe, Vando, Max, the guys on the court, but also to JJ and his growth as a coach, his game planning. I think he's been much better with rotation. Really, the only thing that people continue to complain about is Rui starting. I thought tonight it made sense, obviously, and the results were there. Longer term, I think I prefer DFS still because of the defense, but specifically the perimeter defense. But it's really hard to quibble with what JJ's been doing lately. And I think we're seeing a lot of growth from him as a coach. I mean, and I said a small victory up because I didn't expect him to be this. I think he's become a really, really good coach. And he's looking like a guy who, if we're doing coach rankings, like, I think you have to consider him for a spot in the top 10, honestly. Probably the back end of the top 10. But for a rookie head coach with no prior experience, like that's remarkable. The Tribe One, thank you for the super chat. I don't think OKC can defend us really. Boston and Houston might be it. Luka working himself into shape. Braun catching lobs feels so good. I would slightly disagree on the so OKC is a tricky one because I want to see we haven't seen them play Luka, and in the game that they played OKC, AD was playing. There was no Chet, and I forget if anyone else was out in that game off the top of my head. But I think both teams are like, OKC's vastly different with Chet, and the Lakers are of course vastly different with Luka instead of AD and Max. Guarding is or defending is a relative term, right? Because like I don't think anyone. It's like even the Jokic conversation. Like tonight, the dude still at a double level. He still had 10 assists. It wasn't like he was like rendered completely ineffective. Of course, by his typical standards, by his standards against the Lakers, he was much less effective. But it's the same thing with LeBron and Luka. Like those guys, superstars, top 10 guys, top 15 guys, top 20 guys, they are going to get theirs. It's just a matter of, can you slow them down a little bit? Can you make a guy shoot 38% instead of 52%? Can you make him get 6 turnovers instead of 2 turnovers? Like there are degrees to you disrupting them. So I don't think OKC can shut down Luka or LeBron, but I don't know if Boston and Houston can shut down Luka, LeBron either, right? Like I don't think any team can shut them down. It's really a matter of, can those guys just make shots? Like some nights they'll miss. Some nights they might be a little bit higher turnover. But OKC, I think, with the big front court of Chet and Hartenstein, and those two guys being relative, like four big men being pretty mobile on the perimeter, I'm interested to see how they approach the Lakers matchup. Like, do they go double big? Do they go single big? Do they go small? So I would agree in the sense that I mean, I assume it's gonna be like Dort and Caruso. Maybe Dort gets the LeBron matchup and Caruso gets the Luka matchup, and you could switch that, I guess. They'll throw some J-Dub in there. They'll throw some Shea in there. Those guys are on the smaller side compared to Luka and LeBron, so they do have the size advantage. But I would say as a team, OKC is probably the best team defense in the league. I mean, they're having a historic regular season. Like right now, they're the best net rating of all time. I don't think they're the best team of all time, but there's a lot of shades of like last year's Boston with this OKC team of like they haven't been able to get over the hump. They're young. People don't really believe in them fully. People, like a lot of people were like, oh, is Boston going to lose? Is Miami going to beat Boston? Is Milwaukee going to beat Boston? The Knicks going to beat Boston? Even the Pacers, whatever. Maybe not the Pacers, but there's a lot of doubt with Boston. I feel like it's the same thing with OKC, but we'll see. We'll see. Boston and Houston are athletic, wing heavy teams that I could see bothering the Lakers a bit, it being disruptive. Houston's a really good rebounding team. Boston has Porzingis inside. So I am with you that those are probably the two toughest matchups from like a team guarding the Lakers. And Luka working himself into shape. That's going to be a process, but he's already looked better. Broad catching lobs. It's fun. Jerry Soriano, your lender for life. Thank you for the super chat. Team defense better without AD, more physical and movement. So one interesting thing that tonight was an exception, but I feel like in general, the Lakers have played, it's almost felt like eye test wise, and I'd have to really comb through the numbers with this, but like it has felt like at times they've almost played better without one of their stars. And I'm going to put the Luka era to the side because though technically they did, like they had a couple of wins post trade before Luka played, and then they had the Portland win. But like, I'm going to put that to the side because I think it's not really fair to compare that. But with the AD LeBron era, it did feel like there were times they just looked better without one of the two. And it felt like there was an additional urgency and like focus and attention to detail from the group of, okay, we don't have one of the big dogs tonight. We got to step it up on both sides of the ball. And I wonder if there's been some element of that. I also think like this team has been gelling for quite a while, particularly on the defensive end, where I don't like, I don't want to say that they couldn't have looked like this defensively with AD and Max still in this group. Now, offensively, I think they go to a different stratosphere with Luka. So that's why I'm not talking about the offensive end here. But if you just swap out Luka in this hypothetical alternate universe, you take out Luka, you put in Max, put in AD and slot Jackson as a bench guy. Now you have a top 9 instead of a top 8. I don't know that I would say the Lakers defense is much worse, if worse at all. But I do think there's something to your point about like the team defense being more active and not, honestly, like it might just be a mental thing where they're not relying as much on AD and they're like, we know we have to be better and more locked in because we don't have that elite defender, rim protector at the rim. And I agree, more physical movement, rotating, the scrambling. I think part of it has also been though, like the small ball identity and gone to a different level. And I referenced the Knicks game, the Clippers game, the Warriors, tonight. So that's another element of it too. But again, I'm still a little skeptical that the team defense long-term is going to be better without AD, but it's hard to argue with the results so far. Vamp says, Buha, thank you for the super chat. Vamp asks, Buha, is there a more team-friendly deal than ARs? I would say outside of rookie contract guys, because of course, like, well, this is maybe not the best comparison, but like Victor Wembanyama on his rookie deal, or some of the younger, all-star level guys that are still on rookie contracts. Outside of those guys, he's right there. I can't off the top of my head. I'm trying to think if there's like another sub 20 million guy who's close to Austin's level. That's like not on a rookie deal, but you know what I'm saying. No, I mean there's certain guys who are like under 30 million who I think are on really good contracts. Like there's a lot of good value contracts in the league, but I mean that's part of the reason why the Lakers have not wanted to trade Austin is they felt like they're stealing money by him being on that contract, honestly. But comparing the contract to the production. Volta Dumar, excuse me. Thank you for the super chat. Lakers have AG and Braun, and that wasn't enough. You're saying Nuggets have AG and Braun, and that wasn't enough to affect Luka, LeBron, AR, Rui. Yeah. I mean, I think my biggest, or not my biggest, but one of my bigger takeaways from this game is I just don't like the defensive matchups for Denver against the Lakers now, because LeBron has always been the king of mismatch hunting. Like, it felt that was a big part of his game in Cleveland and Miami and still with the Lakers. But then you add another guy who, just based on being younger and at a different point of his career, is probably better at mismatch hunting than in Luka, at least right now. And not even, it doesn't even matter the comparison who's better, but like those two guys together, it's a nightmare for any defense, because especially because there's a foot speed limitation and a rim protection. Like Jokic has gotten a lot better as a rim protector. There's still a bit of a limitation there. Murray can be picked on. Brown, I really like Christian Brown. I think he's a solid 3-and-D shooting guard. He's just too small. I mean, Luka's got a good like 3 inches on him and however many pounds and just strength. So yeah, Rui I think is still more. I wouldn't throw Rui quite in this group in the sense that like he still was. It was far more like a weak side player in terms of like catch and shoot or like cuts and stuff. So like I think it's hard to like blame individual defense on that, because it's him attacking a help defender, which is a little bit different than like Luka, LeBron, and AR directly are attacking and pick and rolls and off the dribble and stuff. It really had a couple of those possessions, but not quite to the same level as those three. But to your point, yeah, I think it's a tough defensive matchup for the Nuggets. Lee Baggy, thank you for the super chat. Can't wait to see what Stephen A. Smith does now. Yeah, Monday will be, and Lakers don't play again, so there's no way that they lose again or whatever. So yeah, Monday will be interesting in the sports content universe, particularly on TV. The notorious CRG again. Can this be sustained in a 7-game series against them? It's a good question. It's a fair question. I don't know the answer. Obviously, I would say I'd like to see how the next couple matchups go with Denver, and they still play them twice in the next month. I'm sure, as I mentioned, Denver's going to come with their adjustments. They're going to play with a certain level of force. They're going to try and get their back, and we'll see how that goes. But I think the defense, it's going to be hard to sustain that level of defense, I think, for 48 minutes for 7 straight games in a playoff series. However, the offense, I think they're just scratching the surface. I think the offense, even with how it's in the baby stages, even with that, I think they could have dropped 140 tonight. It would have been like that easy for them. So I think I think they can sustain this level of offense, and I don't think Denver has much of an adjustment unless they change the roster, which they can't do because they're past the trade deadline. Also, I've been holding this one in, but how about Russell Westbrook tonight? he shot that, like he shot that the Nuggets were making a bit of a run there, and I know he made a couple of threes, but that was some pretty rough minutes. Vamp, Thank you for the super chat. Is your YouTube channel separate from The Athletic, or do you have to work through them on here? Love your content, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is separate from The Athletic. So I own this. It is independent. That's also why like my full-time job, my primary job is being a reporter for The Athletic. So that's why I'm at every game. I am in the post-game press conferences, and sometimes I have to write newsers depending on how a game goes or what's said or whatever. And then sometimes, like tonight, I'm writing for tomorrow morning, so I have a little bit more time to come on here a little bit earlier and go live earlier. But it is separate. So this is not. This is. I own my YouTube channel. I own my podcast. I negotiated that with my last contract with Athletic, and yeah. So this is all. This is all me. I have an LLC that I started, and turning this into a legitimate business. And I appreciate you watching and listening, and loving the content. Jackson, thank you for the super chat. How does Luka LBJ compare to Harden CP3? That's a good one. I would say that's probably the closest to Luka LBJ in terms of the passing playmaking. The difference I would say is, like, I think LeBron's obviously better than Chris Paul was at that time still. Like, Chris was still really, really good, but I don't think he was quite at the level that LeBron is right now. And so, I mean, from a pure passing perspective, I think you could argue those two guys are close. I would say the difference, in my opinion, is the size. Both Luka and LeBron are bigger than Harden and Chris Paul, and it is harder to disrupt them. So you saw when the Rockets played the Warriors, like, I mean, they had the 3-point streak in Game 7 cost, like, they should have won that. Chris Paul obviously also gets injured at the end of Game 5, but I think if he stays healthy, they actually probably win that series, which would have been nuts, because you would have had the two best teams of all time, arguably back-to-back seasons, losing, or I guess it was 2018, not 2017. So 2 of the 3 years they would have lost to the Cavs and Rockets, but that's I digress. I think it's just the size. Like, Luka is a legit 6'7", 6'8". LeBron is a legit 6'9", and comparing that to Harden, who's 6'5", and Chris Paul, who's barely 6 feet, those guys can just make reads and combat wing defenders at a different level than Harden and CP3 can. Because with both Harden and CP3, and I covered CP3 during the Lob City era. I covered him for a while, and he had some monster series, and they made the semifinals a couple times. But, like, ultimately, there was sometimes a limitation to, like, if you put a quality wing defender on him, again, you're not going to stop him, but you could slow him down a bit. If you're a 6-foot guy, you could bother him. It's the same thing with Trae Young. Harden, we know about his playoff shortcomings and how his game kind of craters. Luka and LeBron, it's the opposite. Those two guys have both been playoff risers, historically. And if you just look at the regular season numbers and look at the playoffs, those guys both get better. So I think Luka, I would still put them at, certainly as an offensive duo, I would put them ahead. But as a playmaking, I give them the edge because of the size and what that unlocks in terms of their passing. Norman Maldonado, a.k.a. my mom. Hi, Late Night Gang. Mama Buha here. I'm off to sleep, but please don't forget to hit the like button. Thanks for the support and super chats. Great one tonight. Shout out to my mom. Appreciate all of her support. And shout out to the Late Night Gang. I appreciate you all. I didn't shout out everybody in the beginning, so I'm better late than never. But I appreciate you all a little bit earlier. Like, typically I'd be going live now or within the next 30 minutes. So I'm glad we're doing this a little bit earlier on a Saturday night. So thank you all for rocking with me. Going to go a little bit longer here. I got a few more super chats. Then we'll see. You know what that means when I say that. Michael Jones, closest passing duo to, thank you for the super chat. closest passing duo to Luka LeBron is probably Penny Hardaway / Jason Kidd and Dennis Johnson / Larry Bird, showing my age. Hey, I was not, I didn't get into basketball to 2000, so I try to be a student of the game, but I appreciate you sharing that. Penny J. Kidd is a really good one, and Dennis Johnson, Larry Bird is also a really good one. I still would go Luka LeBron just because of also, I think the way that they're shooting and scoring threat unlocks a certain level of passing, but I mean, those are two great passing duos, so it's hard to disagree with you, but I would still like Luka and LeBron are. I think the difference between them and to go back to like Harden, like there's a size thing to compare to both of these, where obviously Larry Bird and Penny were similar sizes to Luka and LeBron, not as big or physical, whatever. But Kidd and Johnson were a little bit smaller, so I still give Luka and LeBron the size advantage, and I think that matters in playoff basketball and just like your playmaking reads. Like that's what's made LeBron so difficult to guard and game plan for his whole career, and why basically the only thing teams have tried to do is like give him a jumper, because if he gets downhill, he's either finishing or he's creating a high percentage look for one of his teammates. So I think that the difference with Luka and LeBron is you can make a case like they're just top 5 offensive talents, like period, that are in that conversation. And I don't think Penny and J. Kidd or Johnson and Bird were at that level. So that's the difference for me, but I think those are both really good names to bring up. Raymond Rivera, thank you for the super chat. Why do people want to trade for another player when we just had an incredible win against our nemesis? Give the roster credit. They deserve it. I don't know. So I don't know if there's something going on in the chat right now about trading, but I don't think any of these questions have been about trading. But yeah, the roster deserves credit. They've, again, top 8 have been awesome together. Lakers Sean, thank you for the super chat. Do you worry about Jackson's legal issues coming back at a bad time playoffs? It's a good question. I don't have any updates on the legal situation. It's been dormant to my knowledge. So sure, I guess that could be a fear of that. I mean, I think it already happened and he didn't, or he dealt with his punishment then. There's not been a second punishment. So I feel like something probably would happen by now if it was going to happen, but it's been quiet on that, because that was back around Halloween time. I remember we were in Toronto when it happened. So yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but for now, I would tentatively say it's not looking like it's going to be an issue. Volta Dumar, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate what you do going live after games, engaging with fans. This is super important in building the community. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you acknowledging that, and that's what because so for those who've been following me for a while, I used to record a post game. I'll do 3 takeaways and record that after every game last season, and I would put out like a 25, 30, 35-minute video. And there was no, like, I went live last season maybe like 5 times, 7 times. Like, it was not many times. So this was something that going into the season, I was like, to be honest, it also saves me a little bit of time on the editing side, where I just basically, I have this AI editor that I put it through for the audio side, and that helps things, but also building the community has been great. And tonight was, met someone who listens to the show while I was talking to that person who DM'd me on Instagram. That's probably the quickest way to get a hold of me, but for the record, is to DM me on Instagram. While I'm talking to that person, another person stops me and is yelling, Buha, like, what up? And so that has been really cool to see people respond well to the channel, respond well to the show and the podcast, and really just all of this. So this has been awesome. This has been like the most fulfilling thing I've done, to be quite honest. Christian, does Luka go killer mode and drop a 40 bomb Tuesday? That's a really good question. Thank you for super chat. it's kind of crazy that like they got this one and then they got the Dallas one. It's not in Dallas, so if it was in Dallas, I would say it's probably going for like 70, but it is still the Mavericks. And there's no AD, there's no Lively, there's no Gafford, so their center spot is pretty weak right now in terms of rim protection and defense. I wonder how much Max is gonna guard Luka. Yeah, I don't know if he goes for the 40 bomb, but I think he goes for at least 30, and I think the Lakers are gonna be motivated to win that one. Maybe he goes for 40. We'll see. If he does, you called it first. Zoo, thank you for the super chat. Any update on Rui? Will he miss any future games? We spoke with him again. In retrospect, I don't think he was asked about the injury, so we dropped the ball there. But it didn't seem. I think like he returned to the game. Now that doesn't mean he's fully healthy. Sometimes guys return, the adrenaline wears off. So again, I probably will have a better idea on Monday when they release, like, the Lakers practice Monday, then release the injury report. So I'll ask about Rui and Van. If no one asks before me, whenever I get my question, I will ask about Rui and Vando, and hopefully we get an update there. But I feel like it would maybe be some short-term pain or discomfort. Like I don't know that for sure, but just kind of reading the play that he got injured, but we will see. So I don't have an update there yet. Samir Dude, thank you for the super chat. Big one, but curious to see if the Nuggets or any team makes to exploit our lack of size and get Jokic more involved. I think that's going to come in the next game. I think they're going to do some things a little bit differently. Like you saw them have Jokic bring the ball up. I think they didn't do as much picking and popping with, like, I don't think they did as much. Another thing that I didn't mention with LeBron is he was guarding Murray a lot, and I thought he did a good job. And one of the keys with that was, this is something I talked about last Lakers Nuggets series, was I felt the Lakers should go AD on Jokic and LeBron and Murray, switch all the Jokic Murray 2-man actions, and those were the only two guys who could switch both. Like I was like, okay, Rui can maybe guard Jokic, but he can't switch on a Murray. Vando impressed me, but it was such a short stretch that I like to see more of how he plays Jokic. Now looking at the roster, Jackson can't. I mean, he can switch, I guess, to Murray, onto Murray and dance with him a bit, but I actually like him probably more on Murray than him on Jokic. So I liked them doing, Rui. And sure, I don't love Rui switching on to Murray, but I think it's better than not switching that. So I like LeBron on like, I thought he did a good job. But yeah, I think a team that can exploit their lack of size, like Memphis and Houston, will be interesting. OKC, if they do double big, will be interesting, because like Chet, Hartenstein, and J-Dub is a huge front court. Like that's a tough front court to match up with. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Denver's gonna go back to the drawing board and be prepared for the next one. D'Lo, strongest soldier. Thank you for the chat. Is there gonna be an 80 tribute video on Tuesday? I'd be shocked if there wasn't. I think you have to. I think it would be a poor taste by the Lakers, and you could quote me on that. So I think there will be. Yeah, I mean, the dude won a championship. He's gonna be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's gonna have his jersey retired, like top 75 player. Yeah. Samir Dude, thank you for super chat. How do you think Luka looked tonight in terms of conditioning, rhythm, comfort, and honestly just being happy as a Laker? I will answer those in reverse order. I thought he looked very happy to be a Laker, and I think one thing with Luka that I think I touched on once, but maybe in his debut, like, he's a big high five guy, and I like, they've done the studies on like the teams, like there is a correlation to high fives and how much teams are touching each other, as funny as that sounds, to like win percentage and success. So I think Luka's a big guy in terms of just like giving guys their flowers, giving guys their props, high-fiving them, and just like creating that culture, which hey, according to Dallas, he doesn't create. I yet to see this poor leader that they've thrown mud at. In terms of comfort, I thought he looked much more comfortable having the ball more in his hands. I think that was the biggest adjustment that JJ and the coaching staff did offensively. They really ran the show through him. So I think that's going to continue to be a process. But yeah, he looked more comfortable. Rhythm, I thought, like first shot he airballed. He had a couple he had one airball, one shot that like nearly airballed, but in general he looked pretty comfortable and in rhythm. So I think he caught a really good rhythm there. What was it? Like first quarter he dropped 19, and so like second half of the first quarter in particular, he looked really good, and then parts of the third and fourth. I think the rhythm is still coming back. And conditioning. He played 31 minutes, which is his most minutes as a Laker. So you're starting to see that minutes restriction lift a little bit. I thought, they're playing in altitude. That's the other thing that gives them a huge advantage. I thought all things considered, like he looked better in condition. I don't think he's like, I don't think he's in the best shape of his career. I don't think he's in the shape that he will eventually be in. So I still think of these four, I think like of happiness, comfort, rhythm, and conditioning. Conditioning is the one that still needs to be the most improved upon, but he was active in the passing lanes. He was running the show, had a huge workload offensively, and he was getting out transition. So it's kind of hard to ask more of Luka, to be honest. Next one from Mitch Potter. I say yo when I hear you ask questions in press conferences. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Like there was a time, again, the OGs know, there was a time I almost scrapped the yo-yo because some people thought it was annoying or I've had people say it was cringe or whatever, but like, and I've had people say they did like it at first and then they converted to it and they like it now. So, it's just, it's become my thing because of my name. And I'm like the amount of times now I've heard yo-yo or Buha at games has been just, it's been awesome. All right, that does it for the super chat. So back into the chat. Jay says, I say yo-yo to myself out loud like 10 times a day. Not going to lie. Jackson says, nah, them fools are cringe. Yo-yo. Mr. TD says yo-yo. Appreciate you all. Mo Love says, always like it, but it's yo-yo the J, not yo-yo. I mean, technically, but for my username in middle school was yo-yo Jovan, which is a play on my name. So it was yo, then my name spelling. Eli Khalifa says, Jovan the GOAT, man. Thank you, bro. I thank you. I appreciate that. I'm always humbled by the compliments. Professor Tech Nerd. Great name. You got to love Petros, man. Good energy. Yeah. So the story behind it is that every time I do the Petros and Money show, that's how Petros introduces me. He'll always be like, and coming up, Jovan, Buha. And I can't even try to replicate his voice or how he says it. But so I just asked him, I was like, yo, I'm starting a podcast. I was trying to think of a clever intro. Is there any way Petros can send a clip of him saying my name the way he says it when he introduces me? And the rest is history. Jackson, Tisic, can the Lakers replace Cam Reddish with Jordan Goodwin? He's a much better fit. I'm glad you mentioned Jordan Goodwin. I should have mentioned him earlier. Jordan Goodwin was awesome. He had a couple of huge shots in the fourth to really stretch the lead out, but made a difference with how many rebounds? One offensive rebound, a couple steals, a block, 11 minutes. Yeah, he was good tonight in the limited run. Yes, they can. They can still waive one more guy and add one more guy. So it could be a buyout. If it's buyout guy, it has to be by March 1st. In terms of like the guy has to be bought out. I forget if it has to be bought out or signed by March 1st. I believe it has to be bought out. Like the player has to be bought out by March 1st. If you're bought out after March 1st, you're no longer playoff eligible, or they have to be a current free agent, or it can be a two-way guy. So obviously Goodwin's a two-way guy, and that would be that. Rolla says Luka is like fat Kobe in slow-mo / Matrix. You see him, but you can't catch him. The clown emoji. I'll say this, like, I think the Luka fat stuff has gotten a little out of control. Like the dude's not fat. Is he carrying some extra weight. Is he maybe not in like the best shape or the best physical form compared to other NBA athletes? Like, sure, but he's not like, oh, like I feel like there's this notion that he's obese, and I'm just like, I don't agree with that. I don't see it. Glenn S says Jovan merch, yo-yo shirts, where to buy. I am considering starting creating some merch. So one thing about it though is like I'm big on quality, so I would not want to create something just to try and make like a little bit of money. Like I would want it to be, so I probably have to look into like manufacturers and like making sure I like the quality of it, because I wouldn't want to put my name on something and sell something if I didn't approve of the quality. And as someone who's very particular about my own stuff, what I buy, like I would want to put in that work for that. But certainly I thought about like maybe some t-shirts and stickers and maybe hats or something, hoodies. But yeah, that is coming at some point, hopefully soon. Throne of Lies, who always loves to poke and prod me, admit you are wrong about Rui. Look, I gave Rui his flowers tonight. I will say I don't think he plays like this every night, and I think he's better. Like what we've seen with the small ball stuff is Rui is much better, and we kind of knew this anyway, but like beforehand, it's really been confirmed recently. Rui is better defending bigs than he is wings. I think Rui is better defending fives than he is threes. The issue has been the way that the Lakers have been operating with the starting group. He kind of has to guard threes a lot of the time. But with the way it went tonight, I actually really liked it. Now, Austin and MPJ was a little concerning at first. There was a couple times he got Austin with just being 5 inches bigger than him. But I think there will be teams that test the Lakers a little bit more in that way. So I don't like I don't think I'm wrong on Rui, because I haven't said about like anti-Rui. I just think DFS's defensive versatility, particularly on the perimeter, is for what this starting group needs. But I think Rui's a good player. I would like to see more consistency in general, and I also think the Lakers are playing him out of position. But that doesn't mean I dislike Rui. I think Rui's good. Connor Phillips, when will we see you have another sit down with Jason Tim? If you two are together on Must See TV, I think it's more of a schedule thing, to be honest. Like he's doing non-Lakers stuff and he's going every day. I'm either having a game or traveling or doing my own show almost every day. So it's kind of just been a schedule thing, but we are overdue. Seeing some yo-yos in the chat. Appreciate you. D-Rod, do you think Luka is really 25 years old? Yeah. Well, he's about to be 26. Eduardo, I'm going to go 3 more minutes until an hour 30. Eduardo says, glad I got your live. Heart from Australia. K-Dot, better than Drake. I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate you making the live. I appreciate the heart emoji. I appreciate you watching all the way from Australia. I don't appreciate the last part, but you know what? I'll take 3 out of 4. Mo Love, happiest you've been post game all season. I try, like, it's weird because my emotions like aren't really tied to them winning, to be honest. I do think them winning it's better for the post game environment. It's better for like streams, but I would say like I'll flip this question a little bit and say like this is the most optimistic I've been post game all season. So I don't. Again, I try to keep my personal happiness like separate from the results, because I try to pride myself on being objective and removing my emotions out of things. But the point with this group, I think it's the most optimistic I've been. Jordan Jones, do you think Luka going to the Lakers is more shocking than KD to the Warriors? I'd say Luka because it was a trade. Yes, I think because even at the time, KD to the Warriors, like they were on the short list of teams, and it seemed to be picking up steam, and it seemed to be like Warriors versus I think there's the Celtics in there, there's the Clippers, and different intel on like which team was in second, but I would say Luka, yeah. Another one from What Does It Matter, bruh? Thank you for super chat. Good one. Has played 5 games. Cam was a literal starter for us and a top 10 point of attack defender this year by the advanced metrics. This fan base is infuriatingly short sighted. He's not better than Cam. You bring up a lot of good points. Now, I don't think Cam has been that same level, and it does kind of remind me of last year where he had a good few weeks, and I would say this stint was even shorter, but then ultimately I don't think the defense offsets how bad he is offensively, and he's just also buried in the doghouse. Like the fact that Shake isn't playing over him when the Lakers go to that spot is telling. They tried to trade him. I would say this. I think Cam is the better defender, but I think Goodwin is a better rebounder. It's doing the thumbs up again. I think he's a better rebounder, and I think he's a smarter player offensively, and he's good in the short roll and just kind of he's a good connecting piece offensively in a way that I don't think Cam is. So I think Goodwin's better offensively despite his own shooting limitations. I think he's a better, more physical player in terms of rebounding and just his mentality. I do agree that like as a point of attack guy, Cam is a better player. I just think his offensive limitations are relatively limiting. I think to your point, I think they're pretty similar. I don't think Goodwin is that much better than Cam. I do think he's a little bit better than Cam. But you bring up some good points though. Rolla says conspiracy GMs exchange stars to avoid Supermax. Well, I think that there was pros to both situations for both teams in terms of Dallas shedding salary and the Lakers not having to pay AD another big contract as soon. But Lakers are eventually going to have to pay Luka a couple of big contracts, and Dallas is going to have to figure out, like, I assume they're now committing to paying AD. But they just traded for a guy who was injured, and now the injury has lingered for a while. So, yeah, I mean, I think the financial stuff was a component to it. I think Dallas just didn't believe in Luka and it made a huge bet against him. And I think it's a huge mistake. Michael D says just dropping in to support great Luka game. Thank you, Michael D. I appreciate you. All right, I think I'm caught up, and I went a few minutes over as expected. But I'm going to wrap here. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I will be back on Monday with a new episode of Buha's Block. Not quite sure what I'm going to be talking about today, but maybe looking forward to the Lakers' potential on both sides of the ball in doing maybe a deeper dive on the early returns of the Luka era. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, Tuesday, I'll be back to cover Lakers Mavericks with a post-game reaction. But shout out to the late night gang. I appreciate you all. I saw someone say my mic was cutting in and out. I hope that wasn't the case, but if it was, probably a Wi-Fi thing and not much I could do with that. But Mo Love asked if I'm going to practice, and I got the mic yet. I am going to practice. I tried out a phone mic. It didn't really work, especially with me having a phone case, but I got the DJI Osmo 3, Pocket Osmo 3, whatever it's called. So I'm going to try to use that and hope that has some better audio quality for practice and post game stuff. D8, I love this one. Shout out to Trey Jefferson too. Trey Jefferson that had the Kareem hook, which I did not expect, but Pieter K says, not gonna lie, this content is on the radio. Thank you. I appreciate that. User asks if I have a hotspot. I have my phone hotspot, but I don't trust it more than the hotel Wi-Fi. I think I'm gonna try and bring a Ethernet on the road. It's just not every hotel I'm in has an Ethernet. But all right, we got some Drake conversations. The chat is going off the rails. I love it. But I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I will talk to you very soon. Gonna finish writing, try to get some rest tomorrow. Be back Monday with a new episode of Buha's Block and covering practice. I will talk to you all very soon.